friend?
JC, band No Retreat.
Awesome. Tell us about how you got into hardcore, my friend.
Well, I actually love the metal. Used to listen to a lot of metal. Of course, Slayer is one of my favorites, but I always liked sort of the edge of metal, and I found with hardcore that especially the beatdowns were the most attractive part of any song, and that sort of made me gravitate toward hardcore at first, as far as the music, and eventually became sort of the difference that you found at the shows, the camaraderie with the people that you got to know from going to shows, whether it be in the same area or traveling distances. Being from the Pittsburgh region, used to go to Erie for shows or Cleveland for shows, and then a lot of times out in this area for shows. So seeing some of the same people, you develop those friendships, and that's kind of what kept me with hardcore. These days, there's not much of a hardcore scene in the Pittsburgh area, and I don't know really why. I think probably some of it has to do with the lack of quality bands, but the Pittsburgh kids were a little different. They sort of followed their own favorite bands, and then when those bands either got big or stopped playing, then they sort of stopped going to shows. Erie scene's better than the Pittsburgh scene, but it doesn't compare, to out on the eastern part of the state. And of course, the New York hardcore scene's still going pretty strong. We get the question I get all the time is, when's the next No Retreat reunion show?
Yeah, when is it?
Frankly, I would love to do one just to shut people up and get tired of hearing the question. And frankly, we're not getting any younger, so it'd be nice to do one. It may happen soon, it may not, but I basically come out now as a fan. It's nice to be able to come to a show and not run around like a crazy person trying to pull your equipment up 10 flights of stairs to play in front of 3 kids at a show that you just drove 6 hours to get to. So I just like being able to come out to shows, see some kids that I know, look at some new bands, some of the younger kids coming up, listen to some bands that are good, some bands aren't, but it's nice to see some kids still trying to keep the drive alive. Well, in the Erie area, they play shows differently. They're different places, so there's never really been a show that I've gone to that's in the same place. Pittsburgh sort of had a couple of its good places shut down, and then it opened up another place. There was Mr. Roboto was a place, the Millvale Industrial Theater was a nice place. But things would get too crazy, and they'd shut it down, and then you'd have to find another place to play, and that became more and more difficult, which may have also led to the failure of the scene to kind of keep going. But it's some big clubs there. Graffiti was one of the best clubs for shows. Used to see Strife and Crown of Thorns and a lot of the New York bands out there. And after that, it was really the best place to see a hardcore show, and then it just sort of all went mainstream. If it wasn't at Metropole or some of the bigger places, and you just weren't going to get a show going. Love CC's. They were always wonderful to us. The crowds were always great for us. And before that, Spanky's, for those people who remember Spanky's. But between Spanky's and CC's, that helped put No Retreat on the map. We had a very big following in Pittsburgh, but an enormous following out on this side of the state, which was always wonderful. Come out here, and we're treated like, instead of being treated like guests, we were treated like, the hometown, the hometown band, playing with bands like Crutch and Mushmouth, our good friends, and eventually, like Strength for a Reason, we were able to get really good shows with a lot of good kids coming out, dancing hard and having fun. Well, no, I'll always say is that I think the wonderful thing about hardcore is the people you meet. I mean, there's friendships that I've met through hardcore that I would never find anywhere else that have lasted through the test of time. And I have friends inside and outside of the hardcore scene, and those friends outside of the hardcore scene will never understand, but that's okay. I know any of them, my friends from hardcore, will do anything. They'll be anywhere I need them to, and that's hopefully something like this documentary will help make people realize that it's not just about the music. It's not just about, like people always portray this as a violent sort of scene, and it's not really about that. And those are sort of small byproducts of what happens. The friends and the family and the camaraderie of the hardcore scene is just, I don't think, it's unparalleled compared to anything else I've ever been a part of.